people will just. Can it move out a little bit? I'm here. Here, I can also go back. Does that help if I move this back?
Yeah, I think you're good. Just watch your step.
So I did that. I want to put this on here.
Gary, I know. Well, you paid for the check.
Just because my notes are in the slideshow.
Oh.
Okay, friends, I like to gather. Do you want to grab a cookie? I think Rory is negotiating for us here. Maybe get a more promises, but get some hot tea.
Do you want a seat on that side so you can see the wind?
I'm going to try.
Have a seat.
Do it up there. Yeah. Here.
You're going to tell me that.
I'm closing the doors.
I thought it was to keep the riffraff out.
Thank you. What about those eagles?
There's a lot of, it doesn't just move from slide to slide, there's a lot of animations and stuff in it, so I have my own cues of when to click to keep it.
You okay?
I'm good. Yep.
All right. I'll be right here.
Okay. Have a good one. So is that, but we lost a vote on Johnny's date anyway, so either way, that sort of is.
That's a crazy game.
Good morning, friends. Thanks for gathering. Like Washington crossing the Delaware. Christie has also. Thank you very much. It's very exciting to have our General Secretary here to give us the state of the yearly meeting, I hope. And thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Friends, it's so nice to be here. I think the last time I was at this meeting there was one of the original thread gatherings was held here. I remember being in a small room in there. I remember getting food together there, and it was such. But I've never worshipped here, so it was great to get to worship with you today. I actually had as I've been General Secretary, I've had this over the years a new experience of relationship with God, and that's very different from what I had before I was General Secretary. And sitting in worship here, I started feeling like those different ways of experiencing God kind of coming together and just being a single, more expansive way. So it's really lovely worshiping with you today. So I'm going to take you through what the yearly meeting is organized like and how it flows now, which is different than it was 10 years ago. In 2014, we approved some strategic directions. We approved a strategic plan forward after 4 years of a long-range planning committee working on it, doing discernment all around the yearly meeting, going to quarterly meetings, going to monthly meetings, coming to interim meeting and reporting, working with 2 different consultants. Then we brought forward the package of suggestions for going forward, and the sort of primary piece of that was strategic directions. There were 6 of them. One of the things that I find really interesting about it is that there were 6 that were brought forward. A 7th was added from the floor. And the reason I think that's interesting is because it really shows that we were being faithful and listening and paying attention to what was happening in the room. It wasn't a rote or a thoughtless thing. People were really, or just trust the group, that's fine, go with it. It was really taking it in and holding it in the light and responding to it. And friends noticed there was a thing missing. And in particular, what it was about belonging. The group who had been working on the project on the committee was all standing up front and was all white, and except for maybe 3 of us was people over 70 maybe, And so the conversation was about being inclusive, being welcoming to more people, and how do we set ourselves up structurally to do that? And so that was also added from the floor, and then that was approved. It's been simplified to 5 strategic directions because there were a couple of places where there were 2 that were pretty similar, and it's easier to track 5 than it is 7, so they were all brought together. So that was approved in July of 2014. I started September 1st of 2014. So I came in at the same time as these strategic directions did. And they are different from what we've done before. We have gone through procedures before of listening and trying to lay out what is it that the yearly meeting wants to focus on. But it often came back that we were saying all the things. We want to focus on all the things. And this narrowed it a little bit. There was concern raised that how are we paying attention to continuing revelation? If we're saying these are the things we're working on, does that stop continuing revelation? And so that was something that needed to be held at the same time, is being careful not to be like stuck to the rule of what this says in the strategic direction, but also being able to be guided by it and being able to evolve as we need to. One of the things that I've found in living into this is that just the quote that I'm not going to remember who said it, of live up to the light thou hast been given and more will be revealed, something like that, right? So as you're living into the light, you can see more, so you can live even more into it. And so all of these strategic directions have really been a process of continuing revelation and understanding how God is calling us in these ways. And that sentence reminds me that I wanted to start with saying, I often start by saying, I'm going to use the religious and spiritual language that's meaningful and powerful for me. I might end up using words that aren't words that you use, like God. There are meetings where people don't talk about God as much. I use that as a sort of placeholder for an experience of something that is beyond words, that is interconnecting of all of us. I also use creation and the place where things come from. So I invite you, if that language doesn't work for you, to listen behind the words and find the words that make sense to you where that power is. And then when you're speaking, use the religious and spiritual language that's powerful for you, even if it isn't for other people in the room. Because if we try to keep it so simplified that anybody can be fine with that language, it can mean that we're watering down our own experience in how we verbalize our own experience. And I want to be able to hear the power of what it is that you have to share. So use the language that is powerful for you and translate it when someone else is saying words that don't work for you. Okay, so I'm going to jump in. I'm going to take us through a fair bit of information that I think is revised, so it's pretty straightforward and simple, but it's still a lot of information. So at the end of it, I'll say, are any of these things that you want to go into a little more to understand a little more? We'll do that. And then I have envelopes that inside each one is a kind of scenario of what can happen in a meeting, and we will explore those and see how they fit with the yearly meeting. I'm also...
Do your presentation here. This is Zoom.
Oh, okay, great. So I'm going to click through this slideshow so you can see it by clicking here, but I'm going to look at my notes and words here and click through both at the same time. I'm pretty sure I can do it, but if I get confused, I just want to give you a heads up of what's happening. So, Philadelphia Yearly Meeting, the big picture, deck chairs to weaving. That's the title. It's a little enigmatic, so hang in there. It's going to make sense by the end of it. So, we have said in the past, one of the ways that we hear people talk about the yearly meeting is in terms of, I'm sorry, I have to move something on my screen so I can see better what I'm doing. There we go, okay. So people talk about the yearly meeting in terms of what we think the yearly meeting should do. Like, the yearly meeting should do more outreach. The yearly meeting should involve more youth and young adults. Should help small meetings, which we just heard about a little bit ago in announcements. Yearly meeting should have joy. Yearly meeting should support Friends Ministries. The yearly meeting can hold more dance parties. The yearly meeting should give money to X organization, right? These are things that the kind of statements that we hear. One of the things that this means, though, when we're talking about the yearly meeting in this way, of what the yearly meeting should do, is there's two things. One is it makes us think that the yearly meeting is something else over there. And often we think it's in Philadelphia, across the river from here. And the other thing is that anybody who has a bubble to say is saying this is what the yearly meeting should do, rather than the yearly meeting saying this is where we are and where we're going, and doing that discernment and growth together. So all of these things are important things. But what we're doing when we approved the strategic directions, so when we were talking about them, there was a comment that said, it got a lot of attention, and the person said, can we, as we're implementing this, there's some really interesting things here, and we could use new language to do what we've done before, or we could live into this and do something that is showing us something different. And can we please be careful that we're not just rearranging the deck chairs? So, we didn't. And in fact, what we have done is cleared the decks. And we didn't start with activities at all, of what the yearly meeting can do, should do, will do. We started with verbs. Connect, belong, witness, communicate, and function well. These are the one-word synopses of our 5 strategic directions. I have a whole other slideshow that I could take you through anytime you want that's about all the strategic directions. But what I'm going to do now is talk about what our shape is and where these have helped send us. So as we've lived into these verbs, it's reframed a conception of the yearly meeting, so that the yearly meeting is the interaction of 100+ meetings and 10,000 friends and all the ministries that they carry. That's what the yearly meeting is. It's all of our meetings and our friends and the ministries that we do and the interaction of them. It's not a thing over there. It's what we are doing. And if you think about it this way, what the yearly meeting is all the meetings, that when we're in meeting here, and when you're doing the work of your monthly meeting, it's also the work of the yearly meeting. Because the yearly meeting is that basket of all of us. So now, rather than saying what the yearly meeting should do, we can talk about what we do. Let's do more about ending gun violence. Let's have a dance party. And so where we are now is that we have the yearly meeting is that interaction, and there are ways that we can engage all the people and the meetings and the ministries with one another, and there are, I went a little too fast, there. And there are supports that help us be able to do all of that connecting. So before we go into what those are, there is a primary support and a primary engager that is underneath and supporting and infused through all of what we do, which is the light, which is God amongst, between, within us. And that is part of everything that we're doing and is underneath everything. So there are 6 structures that really scaffold our community. Sessions, our book of faith and practice, our governance, the strategic directions, staff, and the fact that the yearly meeting is a nonprofit organization. Each of these things comes under that interaction, interconnectivity of meetings and people to really support them. So I'm just going to say one sentence now about each of those. So sessions is a starting place for a yearly meeting. It's where all the rest of these supports are approved.
By the way, I'm sorry that I didn't mean that.
Given direction, all of a sudden, a movie started playing in the background. So for example, faith and practice, when we revise faith and practice, it's sessions where that gets approved, right? That everything starts with sessions where all of our meetings and all friends are encouraged to participate. I'm realizing I can talk for multiple paragraphs or pages about each of these. I'm going to not do that. I'm going to stick to just sharing a sentence because there's a lot here to talk about. So faith and practice is our guide to understanding how friends in our yearly meeting express our faith in our lives and our communities and our organization. The governance structure that we have is there to help move our community in the direction identified by the body. The strategic directions are our current priorities for us to focus on as a whole. And we have staff to support and facilitate connection and to meet professional needs of our community. And the fact that we're a nonprofit organization means that we have the legal standing to allow some basic functions. So these are the primary things that come up and are really scaffolding and structures in place to support everything. And then we have a number of tools for engaging the community and to support the meetings and the ministries and the people to all come together. So now I'm going to run through those. Collaboratives. There we go. Okay. This time I'm going to say a sentence about each one as it shows up. So collaboratives are networks of PYM friends who work on jointly on anything of interest to them. Their interests, witnesses, activities of their choosing. We have about 7 of them now that are mostly focused on social justice in one way or another, but they don't need to be. When I'm no longer General Secretary, I'm going to start one on bike riding. Get together with friends who like to ride bikes all across our geography. Peer communities are groups of PYM friends who have a role or an identity in common, like clerks of meetings as a role, or young adult friends, or friends in business, friends whose professional careers are in business. These are our peer communities, and they show up in really different kinds of ways, depending on what the need of that community is. Communities of practice. So this is new language for us. A community of practice is a group of people who share a common passion or ministry, and then they can learn and grow together. Like, that's what a community of practice is. We have 5 that we've identified. You may have heard them called threads. So threads are the things that sort of weave through all of our meetings. They're important in all of our meetings, like ministry and care and religious education. So there are things that Quaker Life Council, one of our governance structures, has said, yeah, these are the things that are really common to all of our meetings. And so we're building up a community of practice around each of those. We're introducing a tool that you may have heard about if you've been attending sessions, that will help support it. It's an online tool that you can use to connect and have conversations with other people in each of those 5 areas. The Bridge Network is a network of individual bridge contacts, where the idea is to have a contact in each meeting who then connects their own meeting and the people in their meeting to whatever is going on outside their meeting that's within the extended family of friends, that is the yearly meeting. And then there's ways of bringing them together so that they can support each other, they can ask each other questions. It doesn't have to go to a staff person who then has to know which meeting is doing something like that and connect them back out. They can talk with each other instead. Corporate witness, one of our strategic directions. Witness is about asking us to pay attention to how God is calling us as an entire community to act together and not delegate that work to a committee or some other group to do that work for us, but to ask everybody, every individual, every household, every meeting to be under the weight of that witness. We have 2 of them. Can anybody name one of them? Addressing climate change is one of them, and the other is addressing racism. Also really interesting stories about how each of them came about that I think further illustrates our faithfulness. But I'm not going to tell that story right now. I'm just going to tell you there is a really great story.
Keep us wanting more.
Yeah.
That's right.
We can talk about it later. The Gifts and Skills Collection is an extension of our database. This was specifically listed in the strategic planning process 10 years ago, where we can now invite each of you to fill out a form online that says within the 5 threads, what are the kinds of things that you are either just curious in or are deeply committed to as a lifelong called passion, or anywhere in the middle. You can share what it is that of those skills that you are willing to share or to learn more about. And it goes into our database, and then we can share it back out even to your meeting. Or if we were doing a search for a new web manager and needed a committee and needed someone from the community to serve on that. So we went to the Gifts and Skills Collection and said, who knows about staff kinds of things and knows about website kinds of things? Found a person, and he joined the search committee. Programs and events, there are programs and events that are the staff of the yearly meeting facilitate. There are programs and events that monthly meetings do, and that then invite other people to. So programs and events can happen anywhere in our community. And on the website, we have a section that's about news, calendar, and resources, those 3 areas that friends are welcome to post too. So if there is something interesting that happened in your meeting, like this is maybe a small thing, but I loved hearing about it, how you have your tables with the books on it. And so then during social hour, there's a thing to connect. That's really interesting. And I understand that started with, blanking on the name.
Maria Ash is our librarian, but yeah.
But, okay, and the other meeting?
Oh, Mount Laurel.
Mount Laurel. I got old. So that's really interesting. You could write a 2-paragraph story about that and submit it online. You just go to pym.org/news and there's a button and you push it and you can put it in there. And so any meeting or Quaker organization in our footprint can do that. Same for events, same for resources. So those are tools that we have for engaging our community. And these are structures that we have to support us. So these things along the bottom provide a kind of scaffolding that all the activity can weave across and be supported by. So we're moving from deck chairs to weaving. So there's the overview of how we're moving towards being structured now. It's a little different from how we've been before. There's a kind of culture change. There may be plenty of places where we're actually doing very similar activity, but it's a different mindset of how we do it. So let me pause and see if there's any of these things that you want to know that you're not quite sure what it is, that you'd like just a little more explanation about.
I don't really understand the bridge network. Just say that one sentence again and I'll memorize it and think about it. These are not staff people, but in fact identified individuals around.
Yeah. So the idea is that, getting to my notes, where is that one? There is a person that your meeting identifies, who is the kind of person who just really engages with people all the time and knows what's happening. There are some people who just know that. They know who's interested in what, and they know it's happening in different places. And that's the perfect kind of personality to serve in this role. And then they're paying attention to what's happening here and to what's happening in the broader community of the yearly meeting. And if they hear someone in the meeting is really concerned about gun violence, and it's this new thing kind of growing for them, but they don't know what to do about it, well, we have a collaborative that is about Quakers ending gun violence. And so the bridge contact, with their ear out all the time, could hear that and say, let me connect you to this collaborative. We've had it in place where they exist for a long time, but we haven't had the underlying infrastructure to really help connect them, and that is coming into place right now. It can also happen the other way, where the bridge contact is listening about what's happening in various places in the yearly meeting. They hear about this new collaborative, come back to you and say, hey, I just want to let you know, there's this Crackerjack collaborative who's doing all of this stuff. We were Philadelphia yearly meeting, and the collaborative were just on WHYY and several other news sources for an event that they did. So the bridge contact may want to make sure that you know about that really interesting stuff that's happening. In the past, we had interim meeting, and someone from each meeting would attend interim meeting and then might report back at business meeting. So it's a similar kind of role to that, but it's not just looking at what happens in a meeting that happens once a month, but what's happening everywhere. Marty.
I understand that you have something called committees that are related to different functions that need to happen in the yearly meeting. could be
Yeah.
wrong about that.
Yeah, so committees are part of the governance. So there are a couple of councils who are appointed by you in session. The people are appointed to those councils. And they have specific responsibilities for helping move the yearly meeting forward in the way that we have said in sessions that we want to be moving. The group of 15 people in Quaker Life Council or 15 people in Admin Council can't do all the work themselves. So they form committees and ask the committees to take that on. So Administrative Council, that's responsible for property and personnel and finances and that kind of 501c3 responsibilities, policy. They have a committee that they're just reformulating right now for property. And they have heard about exactly what you were talking about this morning about Newton needing some help and asking for help. So they're reformulating the property committee so that it's paying attention in particular to smaller meetings who are on a cusp and what can be done about that. Because that structural thing of taking care of our meetings and our property, it falls under governance. So that's how committees work. They're formed by councils and peopled by councils, not by nominating, but by the councils themselves.
And then how does that leave up to, like, then is there a collaborative that might also have other aspects of helping Newton as the example, or a peer group, or any of the above?
Right.
Is that, okay.
So any of those kinds of things could happen. There could be a bunch of people who say, wait, see this meeting here that's doing this, and this meeting over here that's also struggling in the same kind of way, and this meeting that is the same size but doesn't experience themselves as struggling at all. How do we bring them together? And that could happen. There could be some staff support to help get communications out about it and invite people to it and set up a meeting, or however people wanted to do it. We can have staff support to help you do that, so that there could be a collaborative that started about assisting small meetings. There could be a small group of people who brings together resources from all over the place and makes a big deal about getting resources on the website for small meetings. Like, you could use any kinds of our structures in order to do that. The committee itself might say, we want to think about any of those two examples that I just gave. Let's find 5 people across the yearly meeting, bring them together and ask them to find all these resources and bring it to us. So the committee is like, it's a good, we call it a sprint, a short-term committee like that, or subcommittee. That's a good way to bring in people with expertise who aren't going to go to a council meeting every month or, a committee meeting every month, but who have an expertise in this one area, and they can be involved and share their skills. Marty, did you have something else to say?
I'm curious about how a group of people who are maybe interested in stimulating religious education in meetings, they have expertise in that? How do they find a place to get together within the yearly meeting and spring up from the meetings themselves and gather together as a committee? Where is the in for that kind of group of people?
It's a great question. So they would be not a committee, but a collaborative. People who are collaborating together on a thing that's interesting to them. And so there's a process for becoming a collaborative that really just, you need to be able to say, this is what we'll do, this is what's important to us, and to show that there are PYM friends from a couple of meetings who are involved in it. And then there's an application process that you do through QLC. It's all on the website. And there's a staff person, a community engagement coordinator, who's there to support collaboratives or getting people together to start to, like, who could talk with you and think about what is the best way to start this. There's another meeting in New Jersey where I worshiped 2 weeks ago that is doing this big project around knitting for peace, where they are knitting warm things and have a whole process for getting it to people in Ukraine who are living in shelters, where there's 1,500 people living in these 2 shelters in one city, and they're cold. And this meeting has a way to get things to them. And they want to be more involved and have a bigger network around it. So they're gonna have, work with a staff person, set up for their own meeting what they're doing, the people who are engaged in their own meeting. They're gonna invite everyone in the early meeting to come and do handwork and knitting online for a session. And so you can bring your knitting needles and do your thing and talk with each other at this one event. And they're going to tell people about what it is that they're doing and see if anybody else wants to do it. And so then they'll find some more people and they'll apply to be a collaborative in that way. So there's, like, I can imagine a bunch of different things like that, that if some people who want to do religious education could jump in, and the community engagement coordinator could really help you think that through and get some structures in place for that. It would be awesome, in fact, to have that. When I was teaching first day school in my meeting for a long time, I used a lot of the curricula that was written by Friends in the early meeting. They used to come together like once a month or something at Friends Center and
We did.
Yeah.
and write this amazing curricula. Yeah.
I think you still have a staff person who is a religious education specialist, don't you, isn't that Melinda?
Melinda Wenner Bradley was on staff until August. She was the director of program and religious life, and before that was the youth engagement coordinator. And we still do have both of those positions. When Melinda became the director, she brought that portfolio of youth stuff with her into that position because there was no, clawing that away from her. But now we still have the youth engagement coordinator who can support that kind of thing and also supervises all of the staff who run the weekend-long youth programs and youth and family programs. So that's another person to talk with.
So I realize the yearly meeting was this gigantic thing, and it still is this gigantic thing. Very complex, really complex, because I don't know the system yet. Is there a glossary that explains what each of these terms are? And also, are there defined pathways to take a concern to action? And how you connect through all these different pieces? Because, as Quakers seem to do, we have such complex abstract structures that it is very hard for people to enter our community. Not only in worship and our practice and our beliefs, but this structure is super complex. And complexity is everywhere.
In process.
Okay.
Yes, so here are some things that are in process. One is, this is the first time that this way of presenting it has come forward, and I think that councils are actually gonna talk about this on Saturday. I think what we'll do is create this into a narrated video that anyone can watch, and then also have 3-minute videos on each one of those sections. This mouse works. There. We're also working on a publication. We're calling like a view book, similar to like you go to a college and you want to know everything that this college does. So that kind of thing that is written in an engaging and direct and straightforward way that shows these things. And I think the way communications staff is working on this, but I think the way it's going to work is that it will start with sessions, because everything starts with sessions, and you will meet Quaker Jane, who's from, I don't know, Forest Meeting, and then when it shows each of these, it will also show how Quaker Jane and Forest Meeting can be engaged and matter for each of these things. So we're hoping to have a draft of that ready in March.
In process.
Yeah. another thing will be that as the network of the bridge contacts really gets stronger and as the communities of practice get going, to have someone from the meeting who is a bridge contact and have multiple people who are engaged in the communities of practice, they'll be in a place where they can see the conversations that are happening around, because one of the communities of practice is religious education. So if you go to the conversation area that is about religious education, you can gather those people. You can say, hey, I really want to work on a curriculum about blah, blah, blah. Does anyone else want to work on this blah, blah, blah with me? And just go do it.
I guess I'm a little confused about the difference between a collaborative, a peer community, and a community of practice. It does sound like a community of practice is sort of more of an internal focus.
They're very similar. A collaborative can be about anything that any couple of people want to do. And they set their own direction, they do what they want to do, as long as, it's within the bounds of faith and practice and our testimonies. Communities of practice are only those 5 things.
Okay.
There's no inventing new ones.
Is one of those finance?
One of them is governance and stewardship. And so a subcategory of that is finance. Yeah.
And then what's the peer community again? That's just.
So like we have the Young Adult Friends yearly meeting,
okay.
get together several times a year. They have their own way of communicating with each other.
Okay.
They are a peer group.
Friends in Business was another one.
Friends in Business is another one.
Okay.
We don't now have, but it would be, if Friends wanted to have, there could be a peer community of BIPOC friends or Friends of African Descent. Or the staff is working right now to bring together people who have disabilities or who take care of people with disabilities, to just get them together for a little bit. And if they gel, they could become a peer community as well.
I just want to say, I've been serving on administrative council now since September of 2021. And as of April of 2024, I took over as treasurer of the Philadelphia Yearly Meeting. We talked a lot about structures. Structures are people. And I can say that one of the great things that's come to me from participating in the council, several committees, and now as treasurer, is the people I've gotten to know. I mean, some amazing people in this yearly meeting, and they're interesting. They're fun to be with. I learn a lot from them, and hopefully they might learn something from me as well. But I don't want anybody to think of it as a dry, sort of structure. It is people, and there's a lot of wonderful people in our yearly meeting. And Jackie couldn't be here today, but after 20 years serving as a docent at Arch Street, she joined the Arch Street Meeting House Preservation Trust, which is the organization that operates, if you will, and it takes care of Arch Street Meeting House. And she would, I think, say the same thing. I mean, we often talked about, wow, isn't she great? Or it was so much fun to be with him. And I really want to stress that, because you may not want to participate in a committee, but there are lots of ways to do it and lots of ways to get to know people. And I found it to be extremely rewarding, and I encourage you all to do it.
So I just looked at the clock and see that it is noon, which I think is how long we were meant to go. So, I could talk about this for another 6 hours. But I do want to be respectful of people's time.
Aren't we going to do some activities?
Well, I
Yeah, I'd
would
like
love
to
to
do
invite you
one.
into one if you still,
come
yeah?
on.
Okay.
You can hang in for a bit.
Marty, I see your hand half raised, but I'm gonna move with this and, okay. So there's a different scenario in each one of these.
Some
Let-
studies.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like a mystery.
So I was gonna break you into small groups and do multiple of them, but because of the time, I'm gonna, Barbara, will you randomly choose one of them? I love this.
Remember your card.
That's right.
So open it up, what does it say in it?
Your meeting is named a bridge contact. I was just thinking about this. How will being a bridge contact be good for that friend? How will having a bridge contact be good for the meeting? How will having a bridge contact be good for other meetings?
Okay, so keeping in mind all of these things that exist, that is the yearly meeting, that supports the yearly meeting and brings us together in the yearly meeting. Think about those questions. What was the first one again?
How will being a bridge contact be good for that friend?
What are some thoughts about that?
I think Tom mentioned some of it is just the networking opportunities. Just
Yeah.
in life, let alone,
Yeah.
for the good of the meeting.
Your friends you can make.
Yeah.
One of the things that people are really sad and miss from the old structure is interim meeting, where they could once a month go and see their friends who they've seen every month for the last how many years or decades even. And that social connection has been really important and they miss that. So there's a way that there's some of that in there for individuals.
Well, and I think it gets you more involved in your own meeting, because you're part of your role, your responsibility is to find out what people are interested in and be ready to bring that bridge between them and other parts of PYM.
Cool. One more thing?
I have a question. Is that a formal designation or an informal designation? So that bridge contact person, is that just, Anne's just an outgoing person who knows a lot of people and we're gonna let her be our bridge contact? Or is that a formal designation that's arranged with Philadelphia Yearly Meeting?
It's a formal thing. And we have a spot in our database that identifies who the bridge contact is for the meeting.
And does that person then have certain responsibilities with
Yes.
checking in, with attending certain events and
Yep.
programs?
Yeah, exactly. Good. What was the second question?
How will having a bridge contact be good for the meeting? Well, I'm insanely excited about the bridge contact. It's like, we so often have a question and we're sure there's somebody at PYM who has done this before. And the one that came up repeatedly was when we were looking into hybrid worships and the equipment. And another big one I'm always looking around in PYM for is people who do a lot of the website design. That's just something that's always evolving and you need expertise and but then silly things, we're interested in setting up this sewing project. And I would love to talk to the people you were talking about who are doing knitting. But I don't know a priority who these people are dating. I spend a lot of time on your website, full disclosure. I love the calendar and the news, that's where I look, but it would be, instead of just calling a staff member, which is what I do, it'd be great if there was a volunteer. Anyway, I'm very excited.
Right.
I don't want to be the bridge contact, but I really
So what Tom was talking about and what, I've experienced in the past for in PYM's leadership and stuff like that, it's the contact with the people. That's the ongoing thing that makes yearly meeting so powerful. How do you get that? How do you get that? How do you get the engagement that you get to see these people that are really good at whatever they do, and you get inspired by it? It's the people, it's knowing where to enter and how to get to where you find that group of people. And how you get to meet with them and have fun with them.
Yeah. And
I think that's what people are hungry for.
Right.
They're looking for a spiritual home, but they're also looking for the community.
Right. And so a lot of that is related to communication, which is one of our strategic directions. I'm thinking about the collaboratives. There's one, the Middle East Collaborative, that is full of people who have lived like long segments of their life in the Middle East, whose personal call in ministry is related to relationships and peace and transformation in the Middle East. And they are really meaningful group for each other. And they want anybody to be able to come. But if there's not regular communication about it, then people don't necessarily know. And it can feel to them like, well, we've posted 2 articles in the last couple of years. But if you just now start thinking about it, you don't know that it's there. So that regular communication from I'm using them as an example, but really any collaborative and any meeting can do that. If they are posting stories to the website and posting resources, then they can be found more and people can get involved in them. But if they're not communicating about it, then you're not going to hear about it. And the same is true for your meeting. You're doing really interesting things here. And if you will occasionally post a 2-paragraph story about it to the website, that those stories get pushed out every Thursday to 4,000 email addresses. So then other people can hear about what you're doing. When the Birmingham meeting was doing a thing about relationship with Indigenous people and reached out to 2 different kinds of Indigenous communities and posted stories about one of them. And so then if you are a person who is really interested in communication, in relationships with Indigenous people, but nobody in your meeting is really into that, but you see that story, you can call that meeting and find out more. Or there's also a collaborative about it, there's also a granting group about it. So the trick is being able to communicate what all of those things are in a way that doesn't overwhelm everybody, that you can find what you're needing.
So the communication is the key.
It's
At this point, it needs to be the thing that the
Yeah.
yearly meeting was.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've done in my tenure is increased the communications department. So it actually has 4 people in it now. It's staffed up to 3 now. We're about to add the 4th. And because of how important that is.
Yeah.
And they're working on this view book, and then their next step is revision of the website to make it really easy to access in accordance with this kind of structure and awareness.
I wanted to add to the communications piece that, communications experts will give you all different stats according to the study that they did about how many times you have to send a message to a group before most of the people in the group get it. But there's some people in the group who get it the first time and are really ticked off when they see it the 4th time. So communications is a whole thing, but if people see the message and think, oh, that would be great, I'd be really interested in that, but they don't follow up, then the communication, it requires the active response by the people who receive the communication. And I was thinking about annual sessions comes around, and then the fall and spring sessions come around. And if you go to that, you're gonna meet people and do stuff and be more engaged in the meeting and learn things, and it's gonna be great. But probably you won't, because you're busy and it's in God knows where, you have to put it into your GPS and drive there or something, or tell people in advance and then plan, whatever. But the engagement is really important, the response to the communication.
And I think an important part of that is being able to feel like the engagement that you do is deepening what's already important to you, rather than being another thing that you have to do. Because there's just too much that we're all doing. But if what you're doing is, and what your heart is yearning for is something that's also there, then it supports what you're already doing. But I do encourage everybody to come to continuing sessions.
Yes.
They are the second
We're
Saturday.
half hour from Arch Street. I mean, we're lucky. I mean, people from Upper Susquehanna Quarter, Penn State, some
Hours and
Bloomsburg,
hours, yeah.
some very, very far away places. It's
One
a
thing
lot
a
harder
bridge
for them.
contact can do is arrange carpooling and say,
Nice.
go to Arch Street,
Yes.
I'll drive.
So that's a way that having a bridge contact serves the monthly meeting and the friends in the monthly meeting, if they do that. I love that, I hadn't heard of that before.
So when our session?
Second Saturday of March and November. The pattern has been that they're held at Arch Street, they're held in a hybrid manner. The spring sessions are also held in 5 other locations. So I think it's gonna be at,
Salem, is it?
no. Oh, I can see it, but I can't, John Woolman.
Mount Holly?
Yes, I think it's gonna be at Mount Holly.
Yeah, I can.
So you can go to Mount Holly and watch, be part of business sessions in a hybrid way. And then in the afternoon, there's a program and engagement with people that is live, that's not hybrid. And so you only have to go that far. For you, I don't know if that's closer than Arch Street or
Closer,
not.
yeah,
Okay,
it's closer.
yes.
I'm stuck in the 70s, my 70s and the 70s when Philadelphia Yearly Meeting met once a year for 3 or 4 days. And there was representative meeting every month and every meeting sent. So that structure is very familiar to me and I thought was very effective with 115,000 friends and 113 meetings. What I don't see here that would make it much easier for my way of functioning is an organizational flow chart. And I know nobody wants to put yearly meeting on the top because you could be a yearly meeting friend and not a monthly meeting friend or quarterly meeting friend. But when we had yearly meeting and free coordinating committees, you knew, and religious education was in coordinating committee 1, and the business and the finance and the treasurer was in coordinating committee 3. But you could look at a flow chart, and if you had an interest, and it was, you could just, even if you didn't know what your interest was, you could look down and say, Indian Affairs Committee. There was a alcohol committee. But you could look at a flow chart, and you could immediately zone in on where your interest was. You could look at the members of that committee and say, oh,
I like those.
so-and-so, maybe not here, but maybe Hatfield is a member of that committee, and you could contact, you could really zero in on who to talk to.
Rich.
Yes.
Right now, reading, reading a news note,
She wants to.
it's like, oh,
Yeah.
months ago, I saw something, how do I search it, how do I find it, where do I go? Yeah, I mean, the local paper does this all the time with a concert at the library, they publish it the day before everything, and I go, it wasn't on my calendar, where was it? Was it this week, next week? So I'm missing a way to zero in on something that isn't on my mind today, but if somebody says they have an interest, I say, you ought to go here, and be able to just give them the target to go and find out what's happening.
Yeah.
Is there-
That's what the view book is targeting, to be able to do that. And then, okay, it's fine. It would take me a minute to find where I wanted to be in there anyways. That's part of what revising the website is about. There is on the website a place where you can go so that you can see how the governance is laid out and see the councils and then see the committees under each council and click on the committee, and it gives the committee's page and what they're interested in and what kinds of, who all the people are, what they've been working on, what they're most excited about recently. All of that is on the website, but that's just committees, it's not collaboratives. All of the collaboratives have their own whole set of web pages that they can put whatever they want on it, as long as it's, inside policy. So that information is all there, but the flow of it is not super easy to find. You have to know a little bit about what you're looking for in order to find it.
I mean, I hate to say this, but I can participate in Facebook interest groups much better because I can have them there, I can ignore them, and I can go and I go, oh, let's see that, and I can do a search. So, I mean, that, as much as I am conflicted about the social networking on computers, it's pretty effective. if you want to keep abreast of something when you had time to do it, and not have to read
Right.
another 100 emails that I get a day, with notes that I may not have time to get to.
And
That's-
the communities of, the website that supports the communities of practice will be like that. And like in the one that's about religious education, there will be a place where you can click to go to it, see all the news on the PYM website that's related to religious education. A place where you can click to go see all the calendar events, and a place to click to see all the resources. And highlights of what's happening right now, and then all the conversations that anyone wants to have, that will all be in that place. So where we are right now is we have these structures that I was showing, with some real purpose behind it, and the technology and communication supports either extant or being built right now, and staff support for all of them. The next step is to really sort of burrow down and use them more. And all the things that you're saying are in there, but they're not yet completely in the easiest format to be able to access them, but that's coming. And this is where we've been building in the last 10 years, to be able to identify, strategic directions, and moving in this direction, it actually means doing all of these things, and this is how we have to connect. This is how we need to set up our staff in order to do it. This is how our governance needs to be set up. So that's where we've been going, and the next stage is to like really start engaging with it, which is actually part of why I'm moving on, because this is my skill set. The next person will maybe be able to really focus down and use all of those things that exist to get people really engaged in it.
I think the word we're looking for is user interface. We need the website to be the user interface that allows us to act.
Yeah.
And infographics is also another word that's got, it screams for infographics that click through to easily accessible stuff.
And
so God bless whoever is charged with
right.
creating that.
Some of it is in there, but it's not as user friendly as it could be, partly because the website was set up to do something different.
Yeah.
Right. So now we need to do another thing, and that's coming.
Christie, your video was on there explaining the structure, right? I mean, for people who are visual learners as opposed to reading about it. I mean, there is a video on the website that explains the organization of PYM.
Explains all of the governance and how it works. It's actually, we released it in 2014, and it's still really, really relevant. And that's at the same page where all of the governance stuff is. I will, can I give you the URL for that? Can you share it out? Okay. Good. I'm looking, let me just pause and see if there's anyone who has not spoken yet, who, with a little bit of encouragement, is ready to raise your hand.
Right now, if I wanted to find out when the continuing sessions occur, where do I go first?
Always go to the calendar when you want to know about an event.
The calendar on PYM?
PYM.org/calendar. Or if you go to PYM.org, you scroll down, it shows the most recent news stories and the most recent, the next upcoming events. And there's a button to click for either of those to go to the full news.
And there's a search button.
Calendar.
You could type in interim sessions and it'll pull up.
It also, in the search bar across the top, the menu bar across the top says something about community, and you click under that, and there's sessions. Sessions has its whole section of the website there. Yeah. Something that someone said before made me want to say out loud. So we have continuing sessions that are twice a year. We still also do have annual sessions in the summer that are 5 days. The way they've been set up most recently post-COVID is the first 2 days are entirely online, and the second 3 days are hybrid. So you can go to a college campus, which this next year we're going to be at, Tom, help me with the name. Cheney University, which is the first HBCU, which Quakers helped set up. So you can, the second 3 days is that, and it's the last full week where the Sunday is in July. That's when that happens. And it's really fun. Go ahead.
You don't want to talk again. But the thing that I think about is Sam Caldwell years ago saying how it's hard to enter our community. And then Arthur Larrabee trying to distill down what we believe, and we couldn't get there either. But what I'm trying to do with just the meeting house is literally, where is the door to enter?
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
You and every other meeting.
So if you can take, if the yearly meeting can take, the point of view is where is the door? How do I enter the website? How do I enter the community? How do I enter? Just if I walk in, how do I enter?
I like that.
That would be a point of view, I think. I mean, I know all this other structure has to happen underneath it and it has to be, it's very complex and all that other stuff, but basically it's the question, where can I enter and how do I get to where I want to go?
I love that. It's part of the thinking of, in the printed view book, of having Quaker Jane and Forest meeting on each section to show where is the way in for this Quaker to get into that place. We are, for the website that I keep referring to that supports the communities of practice, we are just entering the beta testing phase. We just finished an alpha testing. Now we're doing beta testing, focusing on the ministry and care and the peace and social justice areas. And we're looking for beta testers still. So if there's anyone here who wants to really get into it and see what it's like and give feedback that helps shape how it is, how it's set up, and what kind of information needs to be there to make it really useful, we would love to hear that from you. So let me know, and I'll get you in touch with the staff that's working on that.
I was just
Candy.
watching the movie Temple Green last night, and I was wondering if anybody is working on any kind of graphic novel or comic book version of that visual. I'm not kidding.
No, she's not kidding. And
she's
not kidding.
She could do it. She could do it.
Yeah, I've seen you come out of sessions with beautiful drawings of what we're doing in sessions. The booklet that I'm referring to is, the idea is for it to be very visual, not a mass of words. So to give basic information in a very inviting, visual kind of structure. So, yes? Yes. I think is the answer. Okay, Marty, and then let's hear the third question, and then it might be time to wrap up.
On your basic structure that you showed on the screen before, which was really starting the sessions along the bottom, and then you have all the various areas that you're working on, and then you have things going up the side on the vertical axis. What's missing from that bottom structure there, if you go to the left on that structure, would be monthly meetings, local meetings. You could put quarterly meetings there, you could put local meetings as you're heading off to the left on the horizontal axis, horizontal. Because if you assume that your impetus, all of the things that you do begins at sessions, you need to understand about this monthly meeting that there's only one person right now that is involved in the yearly meeting, as opposed to in the past. One person. So if you're starting at that level, at sessions level, then you're missing a whole bunch of people in the quarterly meetings and monthly meeting that would like to be involved in the yearly meeting. So I guess what I'm saying is, it's a perspective thing. And also, if you look at the top of that, what I see of that structure is totally organized and controlled from the top. I mean, it's really a top-down structure that I'm seeing. What I would hope for and literally pray for is a way to get in there, way to get in, back in. And Christie, I was involved in the yearly meeting for 30 years as a volunteer and a staff person. I would love to get back into it, but it has to begin, we have to think about the local level. And so what I would suggest is that in your new plan of organization, as you show it in a different way for people, that literally on the bottom of that would be committees. Committees, not only organized from the top down, but local committees organized by people in the yearly meeting. That would be a way for, and if you publicize it, you publicize it online, but how much better to publicize it in person, just like you're doing today. That would be a way, oh, look at all the ways that I can get into the yearly meeting. There's a committee, oh, I can see that, I can get involved. So somehow it's a way in.
I think that the setup does do that. But you're asking this question tells me that you're not seeing it yet in the way that it's being presented. So let me keep working on that. The governance and the staff and any of the other structures along the bottom do not set up collaboratives or they can support peer communities, but all of these things, the collaboratives, the peer communities, the communities of practice, the where we go with the corporate witness, the programs and events that we have, none of that is gate-kept in any way by staff or governance. It is whatever the people who are in there want to do, they do it. So let me keep working on it and how it gets communicated. I may check back with you for just checking in on how I'm doing with that. I see your hand, but the next thing is just let's hear that third question.
How will having a bridge contact be good for other meetings?
So how does this meeting have a bridge contact? How is that good for other meetings? Local or quarterly? I use meetings to mean either one.
I was going to say that I actually served as the bridge contact briefly when I was working for Moorestown Meeting. And I now work for AFSC and we have a liaison program. One of the really important functions to me of that bridge contact is going back to the meeting, the yearly meeting, and saying, hey, this is a thing that's coming up a lot at my monthly meeting, and the yearly meeting can engage with this. And obviously that works across all those meetings. So it's definitely not a one-way communication effort. This is what the yearly meeting's doing, hey, monthly meeting, yearly meeting's doing this, and this, and this. But also, hey, yearly meeting, monthly meeting is worried about this, and has concerns about this, and wants to be involved with this.
Yep. Any other thoughts about how your having a bridge contact is meaningful to other monthly or quarterly meetings?
It drives back to that communication that we've got people here doing interesting things, and it fertilizes the entire garden, the entire PYM garden. That's the way I would think of it.
Okay. So my takeaways are that really focusing on the communications and the way that we've been doing that, that's the right track, and double down on that, to do it in a way that is not from the perspective of a person who is on a council or something, but from the perspective of people sitting in the meetings. Communicate about what the yearly meeting is and explain it in a way that is an invitation and shows all the pathways in, and make sure that that's the point of view that we're using as we're doing our communications.
I guess one of my other, so your reference to view book feels like it's a print document, and I'm hoping that it really needs to reside online. First of all, I think from just an editorial, if somebody wants to print a few, that's fine, but we are all digital at this point. And I think getting it right digitally is far more important than a lot of energy laying out a view book, a print view book. I think that scares me in terms of a limited resource. The infographics that then get to the next level of how do I engage with all of, I actually like the structure. And I think it's self-directed. Like the peer groups, the collaboratives are self-directed, and I think, so member-directed, I think that's great. But I think getting that explanation, again, I go to an infographic space that then has links, that feels more important to me than hours and hours and hours on perfection of a view book. Good enough, maybe good enough to get this next beta out.
So the view book does double duty of being able to lay out the interconnection and the engaging part and serving as like the groundwork for the structure of the revised website.
I
So
get it.
it's doing both of those at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And this slideshow, and Tom has seen multiple versions of it. Some of it has been much more sprawling and many more words and harder to follow. So this is like a way of structuring it so that then it supports the view book, which then supports the website.
Well, so market research has completely changed, right? You now throw it at the wall and edit on the back end. It's not the way we normally work as Quakers, but it might be meeting in the middle, might allow some of this frustration to get handled more quickly and get to the end more effectively and faster than, it feels to me like there might be a paradigm on this, on presenting this information that is not today's paradigm. It's just my.
Okay, can I follow up with you later about that?
Sure.
Thanks. Okay. I'm going to suggest that we come to a close just in our time of sitting here, meeting and talking together, but not in terms of, talking about this. I'm easily reached through the yearly meeting and C. Duncan Tessmer at PYM, which is not easy, or General Secretary at PYM, which is easy. I'm also on the website. If you reach out, I may be able to respond to you directly, but I might also ask my assistant to help get you to the place, the person who can speak more directly to what you're asking about.
Christie, and
It's more efficient.
if anybody wants to hear about my experience, or questions that I might be able to answer, feel free to contact me. Happy to talk about it, because, I didn't find it that difficult to enter the world of PYM, so.
Okay, thanks. Come to sessions,
Yes.
second Saturday in March, either Arch Street or Mount Holly. Oh, thank you, friends.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I just finished a meeting. Okay. I would just, all right.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, all right, I'll look at it.
Special thanks to everybody doing food and books. Food and books all in front of us. Marty, before you leave, would you please deal with the sector? Leave the chairs, please, friends. We're leaving these tables and chairs up.